Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'll be breaking down our next matchup for UFC 327. In this one, we have Tatiana Suarez taking on Lupita Godinez. This should be an interesting fight to break down because on paper it looks like a classic elite wrestler versus a well-rounded grinder, but in reality I don't think it's that simple. And honestly, I've been shocking back and forth in my head who I think is going to win this battle because there's certain layers of this where it's like you can't really predict it or know how it's going to play out just by looking at tape. It's just how do these two perform come fight night is I think the best way to put it. But with that said, let's look at our two fighters. Starting with Lupita Godinez. She's currently 15 and 5, or sorry, 14 and 5 as a professional, 3 and 2 in her last 5 fights. Had some, you know, sorry, for Lupita Godinez, at times was be inconsistent. Like she was a clear talent, but never really put it all together. That being said, she got a good win over Tabitha Ritchie, then went on a 2-fight skid, losing to Verna Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern. But in retrospect, she's lost to the champion and like the boogie woman of the division, or I guess you could say the number 2 in the division. But is now on a 2-fight win streak, beating Julia Pilastri, who I think is a good prospect, and Jessica Andrade in what is possibly Lupita Godinez's best win, at least on paper, right? Andrade being a former champion and all that. So, though, for like I said, for Godinez, she's just always had those times where she looked really great, really talented for sure. But then there are other times where she just doesn't put it all together or fight to the best of her abilities. Just sometimes a very inconsistent fighter. But when Godinez is firing on all cylinders, she looks great. Now, looking at Tatiana Suarez, she's currently 11 and 1 as a professional, 4 and 1 in her last 5 fights. For Suarez, I mean, her story is kind of well known, right? Fighting through cancer, absolutely did fantastic in wrestling. Like she has some of the best wrestling credentials in women's MMA, and it translated right, beating names like where is it? Or sorry, like Alexa Grasso, like Carla Esparza. And now in the most recent 5, for Suarez beating Nina Nunes, which granted is almost 7 years ago. Submitted Montella de la Rosa, submitted Jessica Andrade. Then last February, suffered the first loss of her career when she fought Zhang Wei Li for the title. But, it's Zhang Wei Li. She's lost to basically the best strawweight ever, in my opinion. Then went back to her winning ways when she defeated Amanda Lamos last September. Granted, though, in that fight, Suarez did not look like herself. It could be a number of things. A bad weight cut, just the inactivity, all the injuries catching up with her. But I don't know. I can tell you, though, that was not the Suarez of old because while she won the fight at the end of the day, she didn't look that great against Lamos, right? She even got reversed in round 3 and lost that round due to being on bottom. So it makes it a bit tricky. Like, is Suarez still that dominant fighter we all know? Or is this Lupita Godinez's chance to get right into the top 5 against a past her prime Suarez? That's the question. But with that said, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Suarez, at her peak, she's still arguably the best wrestler in this division for sure. That being said, I don't know, dude. The way Wei Li was able to either defend all the takedowns or reverse position, there's some questions about that. But still, at her peak, especially on paper, she's the best wrestler in the division. And for sure, though, one of the most dominant grapplers at strawweight. So for Suarez, her game is built on relentless takedowns, top control, and positional dominance. And physically, she's bigger, stronger, and just very difficult to deal with in the clinch. She's one of the bigger strawweights on the roster. Now, she's not the biggest like female athlete, right? She's only like 5'5", but in strawweight, 115 pounds, she might be the biggest and strongest of them all, except for like Jessica Andrade, but very few can match that kind of physicality. But here's the big question. How much of that is still here? Because, like I said, Suarez, she's come off different long layoffs before, injuries, and just inconsistent activity. Oh, yeah, not all of it her fault. Just the injuries have plagued her throughout her career. And even in her recent fights, like against Amanda Lamos, she didn't look quite as dominant as before. And there were moments where she got reversed and just didn't fully control positions. And that's something we haven't seen from Suarez. And, recently in Zhang Weili, she looked terrible after round one. So there, like I said, there's some question marks that just make this not so easy for me to pick, in my opinion. Now, looking at Lupita Godinez, I would say she's one of the more, like I said, not just inconsistent, but I think underrated fighters. For Lupi, she's got strong boxing. She fights at a very high pace, good cardio, and very good scrambling ability. And importantly, in this type of fight, she's not helpless on the ground. Like, I know Lupita Godinez's sister is a high level wrestler and is training with Lupita Godinez almost every single day. So Lupita Godinez is training with good level wrestlers. And it's shown, right? Godinez, she has hung with the absolute elite in this division in terms of grapplers, like Verna Jandiroba, like Mackenzie Dern. She didn't get completely overwhelmed by those two on the ground. She survived, she scrambled, and stayed competitive in that fight. In those fights. And that matters a lot in this matchup for me. So when it comes to it stylistically, this fight I think comes down to, can Suarez dominate like she used to? Because if she can, she can get consistent takedowns, hold top position, and just control the rounds, she probably wins. But if she can't, if Godinez is able to scramble, get back up, and force extended striking exchanges, then the fight starts to tilt. So I guess you could say for me, or I guess for me anyway, the X factor is momentum versus just uncertainty. Because Godinez right now, she's a bit more active, clearly improving, and just in more of a rhythm, right? Just, I think, starting to click it a little better. That Julia Plastri fight and that Andrade fight, I think she's starting to put it together a bit better and starting to really get into the rhythm of it all. For Suarez, she's still talented. She's still more proven, I think, than Lupi, or at least in terms of having better quality wins. But inconsistent lately. That's what's driving me up the wall with this one. In a fight like this, I think activity and sharpness can make a huge difference. So for this one, this is a risky pick. Don't get me wrong, because betting against Suarez's wrestling is extremely dangerous. That said, I picked Weili against her, and that worked out great for me. But this was before I started the channel. But I feel like I just feel like Lupita Godinez, she has shown she can handle grappling before, like really, really good grapplers who are good at top pressure or good from the bottom. She won't panic, and I think she can push a high pace. And if Suarez isn't the same dominant force, this becomes a closer fight than I think most people expect. So my official prediction, I'm going to go with Lupita Godinez, and I'm going to pick her via decision. I think she survives the grappling. I think she can win in the scrambles, get back up, and outwork Suarez over 3 rounds. I think Lupita Godinez has a better gas tank, right? I mean, we've seen Lupita Godinez tire a bit after round 3, but I think for the first 2 rounds, she's going to be a better workhorse in there, a bit stronger, better striker for sure. And I just don't think Suarez is the same. I don't think that. I think, Suarez, she seems a bit shot. Now, if she comes back in relatively same form that like beat Andrade and beat Montella de la Rosa, then she could beat a Lupita Godinez for sure. But this is honestly, it's going to be one of those picks where I'm either going to look like a genius or Suarez just ragdolls her and makes it look easy, makes me look like a fool. But I'm going to go Lupita Godinez in this one. I'm going to pick her via decision. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. And remember, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.